This podcast contains mature and adult themes and is not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
But the father is like very interesting because he asks him, again, I don't like the words are problematic. He asks Saif, like, but do normal che. And then like Saif is like, so they use normal for straight.
Right.
And then, but the father tells him, look, if you're gay, just tell us. It's
Right.
okay.
Yes.
I won't take you to like dance bars and this and that. We won't get you married. Like, and then Saif says, no, sub normal che or whatever, right?
Right.
But again, I mean, it's very interesting to have these conversations on screen, right? Are they ideal? Hell no.
Hell no.
But would I take it in 2003 for over no conversations? Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're
Because
right.
they
You're
open the
so
doors.
Right. Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Queer Podcast. Today's episode is all about queer representation in the media, whether this has actually gotten more meaningful or is it still tokenistic and pinkwashing, and how this actually impacts our lives. So much has changed for the better from my zamana, when it was hard to even find a queer character on screen and impossible to find anything but negative, horrible stereotypes. So let's jump into it with our super lovely guest. Now I have to read this because there's so many qualifications. Author, public speaker, culture curator, LGBTQIA inclusion advocate, and fabulous queer about town, Parmesh Shahani.
And most of all, fan of Ashish Sawhney, not Shahani.
Yay.
From the sequined shorts dancing in Voodoo's days.
What?
So fan of you.
Where have you imagined this sequence?
I have seen you. In the glory days, in your glory days of the 90s.
Yes.
So thank you for being so fabulous, because you, Riyadh, Corey, a whole generation of icons to me while I was in college and growing up, gave me the courage and gave me the confidence to imagine queer possibilities for myself. So thank you for dancing on those tables first.
That's
and
nice.
clearing a ramp for all of us to like parade on in the years that followed.
That's really sweet. Thank you. Yeah, but I guess every generation gives back like you are now.
Now I'm like, gay daddy, gay mommy, gay
And
auntie
big
to
gay
a,
icon, yeah.
to a whole generation of young queers who
Young gabies.
take advice, come and raid my closet.
Oh, really? They do
All
that
kinds
as well?
of things, yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
okay.
So
Thank God.
such is life, circle of life.
Circle of life. So I have to get back to your extremely impressive CV. Parmesh has been the head of Godrej India Culture Lab, a TED Senior Fellow, a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader, and a Yale World Fellow. What do you do to become all this?
I'm a jolly good fellow.
Yeah. So Parmesh's first book was Gay Bombay, Globalization, Love and Belonging in Contemporary India, which was 2008.
Yeah.
And more recently, Parmesh has written Queeristan, LGBTQ Inclusion in Corporate India, which has won many an award, right?
Yeah, it's won awards, but I think more importantly, it's been read by people who I wanted it to be read by. So which is, HR managers, CEOs, MBA school students, MBA school professors. It's being taught.
Excellent.
And it's being used as a manual to bring about change in workplaces.
Amazing. So I met Parmesh back in the mid-90s. We just had a little chat before he was 18.
Yeah.
And I met Parmesh through my bestie. We've already mentioned him, gay icon and filmmaker Riyadh Wadia, who sadly is with us no more. Though I think his legacy lives on in people like you and me.
Completely. And in the cinema that our country is producing, in the queer film festivals, in the scene, in the parties, when I see folks like Menaka Guruswamy and Arundhati go on CNN, I'm reminded of Riyadh's interview when he went in 2002, I think. Or no, even before, if I'm not mistaken, right? With Riz Khan.
Yes, you're right.
So his legacy, he paved the way for all of us to...
Absolutely. Even in the independent filmmaking, like I made my first documentary because of Riyadh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think all of us did a lot because we were so lucky to have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah, he was
close to
actually
him.
my professor at XIC.
I remember that.
And he walked into our class one day.
So you were trying to sleep with the professor, basically.
No,
You were
Riyadh
one of
was
those.
No, I loved Riyadh. He was a friend. He was a mentor. And, I've never seen someone so confident, so open, so proud. Silver glasses on his head, tight shirt. And he showed us his film. Big nipples and just, so owning himself. And then, I reached out to him. He obviously knew. He's like, darling, you're gay. And I was like, no, I'm just doing research.
No. I think I might be bisexual.
No, all those terms also, who knew?
Yeah, that's
at
true.
that time. And then he called me home for dinner and I met you. I met so many other people and realized that it's not just about sexuality. It's about community. It's about an alternate family. It's about imagining other ways of being and living and loving. So Riyadh was all of that. So yeah, to all the next gen queers who are listening, please remember that. And now we sound like such old aunties, but we've all built on the edifice of the past and this infrastructure that you're living in has folks like Riyadh, folks like Ashok.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a generation before Riyadh.
Salim Kidwai, Ruth Vanita.
Yes.
I mean, have all struggled and labored to build
to create
that foundation.
What we have today.
So,
yeah,
we must honor them.
And then you carry that legacy on, and you've done more than a fair bit to do that. So it's amazing to see that cycle continue. So Parmesh was this gangly but cutish, tall youngster who Riyadh was playing Pygmalion with, and I started calling you Boy Wonder, and I still do actually, though you're not a boy.
No.
Much has changed, time has moved on, and Parmesh is now very much the gay icon himself through his work and his persona. And thank you so much for taking the time out. Parmesh has flown in from Vancouver, very fancy, with amazingly hot pink kickers, which are great. And
Pier Paolo Valentino pink.
Oh, Valentino.
Also known in India as Rani pink, but Valentino does it.
This is really Rani pink. Huh?
This is more like, it's like Rani pink on acid. Yeah,
Rani pink on acid. So I wanted to talk to you about queer representation and how that has evolved and how we map that.
Yeah.
And how important that is actually for us as a community.
Yeah.
So internationally, of course, things are very different. We see that inclusivity, diversity are huge, and and anything today is almost a benchmark to be cool and woke is to have a queer character somewhere.
Yeah.
We've had major Hollywood films and series for ages that have been very successful with queer characters. We've had queer-themed Oscar winners over the years. And just this year, if you look at 2023, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Whale, Joyland from Pakistan, what a great film, Tar, and Close. All these films had queer characters. So that's a big lineup in a mainstream, sort of award ceremony. So historically, I'm wondering, Parmesh, were there any films that you saw as a young boy that left an impression on you?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, so to me, there's all these global films, but I always connected with films that were non-Western in some way.
Oh.
So I'm thinking of The Wedding Banquet by
Right.
Ang Lee.
Yes, Ang Lee.
Which shows a Taiwanese gay couple and what happens when the mother comes and
Yes.
she doesn't know and she's trying to do an arranged marriage. Or this beautiful film I saw when the Indian Film Festival of India was not in Trivandrum. It used to happen in various cities, and in Bombay it happened.
Right.
Strawberry and Chocolate set in Cuba.
That's right.
Which was
a book.
exquisite.
Right,
it was exquisite. It's about an older gay man, a younger gay person. Love happens under very different. So, I mean, what I resonated with were these, whether it's Latin American stories or whether it's Asian stories or whether it's, and of course, Birdcage, and of course, My Beautiful Laundrette, which is, an interracial love story between, I think, a Pakistani British person and a white person, and who, during the time of racism in Thatcher's Britain.
Yeah.
And love kind of is a bridge that helps them, overcome all of that. So I was resonating very much with, while all this was happening, and of course, in the international, pop culture, there's Elton John, there's Freddie Mercury, there's all of, who also have basic connections in some way. But the stories that I loved and I was resonating with were these, that were more desi.
Right. Yeah.
some
that's
way that
interesting.
were-
I think my generation kind of didn't even have those options. So it was
Yeah.
very much Hollywood or British
Yeah,
films, and
yeah.
British films hardly got made.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to note that your generation or you
Yeah.
had access to more sort of other cultures, more
Yeah,
diversity,
yeah.
which were representing. So that's cool.
Yeah, I was yearning for that. I was dying to see it. I was dying to read it because, as much as I love Western culture, I mean, I feel I'm at heart, I'm like 100% Bollywood Desi with
you're
our own kind of.
Yeah, you're very desi in your own way. And in the way you
Yeah,
present yourself
yeah,
also. You're always
yeah.
sort of mixing and matching like an Indian element
Yeah.
to
So, I mean, I was searching for those stories, right? Which is why when I saw Bomb Gay, which is
Riyadh's
a documentary,
film.
Riyadh's
Yes.
film, I mean, it was like an electric current running through me, right? Because here you have like, you're seeing domestic scenes, you're seeing cruising on trains, you're seeing friendship, that last poem, right?
Yeah.
Friends only have friends over
Yes,
for dinner.
that- and you were in that.
No, I wasn't in that, but like I remember, you, Django, everyone else
Yeah,
was in it.
yeah.
And you're seeing your city, you're seeing queerness kind
Exactly.
of as a smell, as a
Yes.
taste, and it's not an alien concept. And
Yeah.
so, I was always searching. I was glad I found these
Yeah.
in books, in in film, etc.
Yeah.
And it really helped shape my worldview. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So our main focus, of course, is Indian
Yeah.
representation. So let's turn the lens back home. What have been defining queer moments for you on screen historically?
In India, I
Yeah.
mean, again, I feel really lucky to have grown up at a time of media representation where we go from, searching for crumbs
Huh.
and like interpreting crumbs and giving them meaning, right? Like, I mean, whether it's Sholay, whether it's, so many, Razia, Razia Sultan with
that's right.
Parveen Babi and
Hema Malini.
Hema, and that,
And the
that
feather.
feather.
Yeah.
I mean, the frisson, the excitement or whatever. But I mean, these are crumbs, and it's queer cinema, and in that we followed global tropes, because earlier, there's no direct queer representation. Queerness enters either through imagination or fantasy and repurposing.
Right.
All the way to, and then, representation becomes you're either the villain or the comic, sidekick.
Unfortunately.
And
yeah.
you see that in, character like Pinku of Anupam Kher in Mast Kalandar, who is a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Or, in Karan Razdan's girlfriend,
That's
the,
right.
the
that
lesbian is the
cult classic.
is the lesbian. I mean, you see these cringe
Cringe.
characters, but I think they're important because they open doors, they open ways of introducing them. And then, of course, in so many of the Salman Khan, etc., films of the 90s, or
There's
Amir Khan,
always
there's
used to be
a,
one little sidekick.
I mean, Raja Hindustani, for example, the sidekicks are always, it's either, a butch woman or a very camp man, and they're there for, but I mean,
Comic
so you
value.
see that they're there for comic value, or in films like, Sarak, etc., Maharani and all are villains.
That's true.
I actually like Sarak very much. I think Maharani is an iconic character, as as is in Gangubai. I mean, I think what Vijay Raj did in Gangubai is like Maharani taken to
An
the next level.
extension, Yeah.
But anyway, so I
Yeah.
mean, so from that, then you see evolution. So I think the first thing was My Brother Nikhil and Fire,
Absolutely.
where you have explicit queer characters, and you see the reception of that. There it's interesting. My Brother Nikhil flies under the radar, and touches with fire is, of course, it's women, becomes...
And a big hue and cry.
And then you see more and more queer characters, and I'm not only talking about explicit. I mean, you see a Dostana,
Huh.
which I thought was interesting because at a text and subtext level, it's problematic. They're not really gay. They're pretending to be gay.
Yeah.
But subtext is acceptance, because subtext is a mother
Yes, who does accept
who first is trying to do voodoo and, get the queerness out of her son. But when Priyanka Chopra's character explains to her that, love is love, there's a complete about turn,
she
and with
comes-
very heteronormative, problematic trappings
Of
of
course.
Aarti, Kangan, Karwa Chauth, and
Yeah.
the works, accepts. And then there's a paratext, which is Dostana created conversations. I can't tell you of the number of people who have reached out to me and said, I came out to my parents with Dostana.
with Dostana. Yeah.
So, what the text is, honestly, for a Dostana, to me, doesn't matter. The fact that Dostana enabled, because until then we didn't have, who says some Lengik or whatever,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
the
but people
government.
but people could show Dostana and say, I'm like this,
Yeah, correct,
or
correct.
big in conversation. So it's not ideal. And now, I just feel so grateful. I'm in a time of abundance, right?
Yeah,
because whether you have an ek ladki ko dekha, whether you have a Shubh Mangal Jada,
Badhai do.
a Badhai Do. Shubh Mangal is interesting. And, earlier films, even when they were, and of course we missed out a lot, the gayness becomes such an important pivot point. Shubh
Right.
Mangal Jada and Badhai Do, it's moved beyond. Shubh Mangal Jada, in the first 10 minutes of the film, they're gay, they've kissed, it's
Yeah.
not a big deal.
Yeah.
The parents and their lack of understanding is that. So we've shifted the burden
Right.
is gone on the parents.
Correct.
Badhai Do takes it to the next level of
Yeah,
queer
I really love
adoption,
that.
future rights. So, incredible, right?
Yeah,
Chandigarh Kare Ashiki speaks about
Problematic, but yes.
but trans love, parent accepting the trans child, heterosexual person understanding that whole sequence in which trans is explained on
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
It gave me goosebumps. And I think now more and more, openly, explicitly, excitedly,
Yeah.
and understanding very well that,
Yeah.
Bollywood has always been ahead of the curve.
And there was that
Yeah.
whole time when, they were talking about, of course, like gossiping about Kejo and Shah Rukh. And Shah Rukh was quite cool about it.
And
in
so
what
is
I
Kejo.
remember. Kejo, of course.
Yeah. But I think it's also very important, right? When you look, one is queer people on screen, which I think will take more and more time as more
But it
actors
is
become comfortable. It
happening.
is happening more and more. The other is queer stories being told,
Which is
definitely happening because of various reasons. Society is changing, demographics are changing, and
Right.
people are realizing that these are audiences.
Yeah.
And Bollywood is very smart. Money first, and
Yeah.
if,
Whatever works.
whatever works. And the third, I would say, which has been, to answer your question of what has changed since 50s, 60s and on, is queer aesthetics. And here I'm talking about a Bansali aesthetic.
Right.
I'm talking about a Kejo. Now, we don't know is Bansali, none of this is out
Yeah,
or
and
open.
even Kejo has never said the words.
Is Kejo gay or not? Is Bansali
It's
gay or
almost
not?
it's almost
irrelevant.
irrelevant
But
now,
what they
yeah.
have given us in their films is a very hyper queer aesthetic.
Right.
Is an operatic,
Over the top.
intense, emotional filmography
Yeah.
in which, if we look at all their film, we can see
Yes.
queer desire.
You're so right. Because I remember seeing Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam and just thinking, God, this director feels very gay. And I remember seeing also, what's it, Kajol and Rani. and Shah Rukh.
All.
I remember seeing Kuch Kuch
or-
Hota Hai and thinking, again, the way it was done, it was really pushing all those, queer
or Student of the
tropes.
Year.
Student of
the
the Year, of
bromance
course, of
between
course.
Sid and Varun, or
Yeah.
even a character like Rishi Kapoor, which goes for laughs, but the pathos in Rishi Kapoor's character is real. There are queer men who are
cannot
from
come
that
out.
generation,
Yeah,
who cannot
absolutely.
come out, who are desiring others. But again, so I'm saying the aesthetic, the way that they make these films, right? So I'm saying what has also changed with all of this, there's a queer way of telling stories,
Right.
which I think has infused into straight cinema in a very interesting way. So cinema has become full of queer possibilities.
Right.
It's a queer nazariya,
Yes.
which even straight people are having now.
Right.
And that excites me, because I think what's exciting about being and creating and living and loving in India today is the gaze.
Right.
Is the way that
Yes.
we can look at things. Not
Right.
the GAYS,
Yeah,
but the
the GAZE,
GAZE.
yeah.
And I think that has expanded. So that really excites me.
Wow, that's a very
Yeah.
interesting thing
Yeah.
to do. Then, of course, there's television. Unfortunately, we can't say that television has been too cool. I was researching it, and can you think of any queer representation that you're still scarred by?
But I don't get scarred. That's my thing. I'm
Thick-skinned.
radically, positively, ridiculously optimistic in
Amazing.
everything that I see. So character like Maddie in Jaisi Koi Nahi.
Yes.
Cringe as the plot might be, but we're talking about late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
A Maddie taking the boss to a gay bar, Jaisi
Right.
talking about this.
Yeah.
Is, and
Was
clearly
revolutionary.
the script writers and all went to Voodoo and saw you.
But didn't
and
cast
that
me.
generation,
Yeah.
they cast Rajesh Khera playing Maddie, who's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, so I see possibility in all of that. I see, so all the way now to what I like, and from that, right, from there being these occasional spurts of queer people.
Yeah, there were a few. Sorry, there was Karima on Dekh Bhai Dekh.
Yeah, yeah.
There was Tara had Devan Bhojani again playing Petha, who was a cringy
Yeah,
gay character.
yeah, yeah.
Like you mentioned, there was Jassi, there was Sarabai versus Sarabai had
Yeah.
Rosesh. And then, of course, MTV and other channels
Yeah.
came along and obviously
Yeah.
opened up the whole
Yeah.
conversation. Kapil Sharma show till today is extremely popular, and the most of the characters are in drag.
Yeah. So again, I know people have various opinions on this. I mean, many people don't like it. I see Kapil Sharma show regularly.
Yeah.
I enjoy. I mean, again, I like performance. I like over the top. I like slapstick, and I like Kapil very much.
Right.
Is it cringe? Of course, but it's popular television.
Yeah.
What I like is that Kapil, with all of that, also talks about issues that matter. So Badhai Do cast will come on.
Yes.
Chandigarh Kare Ashiki cast
Yes.
will come on.
True.
He will. So they use the show and the trappings of, say, silliness
Yeah.
and very problematic frameworks to bring forward.
To actually.
And our country is mass. Whatever we do in how many ever happy hookers you make, and I love it, and how many ever film festivals it goes at, Ashish.
Yeah. Nobody sees it.
Yeah, people see it and they are moved and they cry and their lives change. But we're talking about 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 max.
And that too, elite, urban, privileged people.
Yeah, which also deserve to see great cinema like everyone else.
Yeah.
But an Amir Khan Satyamev Jayate episode
Oh my God.
is seen by hundreds and thousands and crores of people.
Yeah.
And mothers accept their queer children because they see it.
Because around that time, I did a series called Coming Out Videos, short documentaries, and almost every character said, in fact, the trans men in the series said, when I saw that episode of Satyamev, I realized I was a trans male.
Yeah.
Like even the realization of themselves and the acceptance of themselves. And then there, one of the trans male characters, CJ Chanchal, actually says, small town Jabalpur, actually says, I showed my parents this episode.
Yeah.
And they could kind of understand what I was saying because it's facilitated by Amir Khan. It makes a huge difference.
And then it role models good parenting. So you see Ghazal Dhaliwal's parents come on that show.
Oh my God.
And
right.
say...
And blow your world, yeah.
And say, I went from home to home in my village saying my son is now going to be my daughter. I want you to respect her gender.
Yeah.
So parents across India have a script endorsed by Amir that says this is what good behavior is. So I'm a big believer in mass. If Kapil Sharma on his show talks about Badhai Do, whether people see Badhai Do or not actually doesn't matter. Because people know that
there is
Kapil, whom they love, whom they watch, whom like crores and crores watch, is endorsing this. To me, that is this is the shift which is happening in India, which is enabling, which I'm trying to capture in my book, like Kuresan, which is enabling workplace inclusion, which is enabling governments, which is helping change laws. It is this shift.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I mean,
mass
I'm so
glad
everything.
actually you're sitting here doing all this because somebody could easily take the view that it's been shit, it's been terrible, it's been regressive.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of positivity to it.
Always.
And to what's happened. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so then moving on, in the 2000s, we see a lot getting better.
Yeah.
Homosexuality gets decriminalized with some flip-flopping. But we see, like you said, My Brother Nikhil, we see 68 Pages.
Yeah.
Again, small films, small audiences. Margarita with a Straw, Shonali Bose. Beautiful film, intersection of differently abled person with their sexuality.
Yeah.
Not still so mainstream, but getting there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then coming back to that whole Kejo thing, you see all those that Shantabai and Kal Ho Na Ho and all that as positive?
I loved it.
You're also a full mass Chavani
I'm mass.
audience.
I'm mass. I mean, I'm everything. Again, it was not, I did not find Shantabai problematic. I thought it was fun. I thought at that moment, again, and maybe it's because of Shah Rukh. Maybe it took what was a cringe script and just elevated it.
Right.
That's the magic of Shah Rukh, right? And I know I'm gushing, but of course, Shah Rukh is that. But he elevates it with his love, with his kindness, with his beauty, and he makes it, so beautiful. So I thought that, right? Remember, this is early 2000s.
Yes.
So to have, two men being very matter of fact, saying Shantabai, more than Shantabai, I think what I also like is not Sati, I mean, who's Saif's father in that film, right? I mean, but the father is like very interesting because he asks him, again, I don't like the words are problematic. He asks Saif, like, but do normal che. And then like Saif is like, so they use normal for straight.
Right.
And then, but the father tells him, look, if you're gay, just tell us. It's
Right.
okay.
Yes.
I won't take you to like dance bars and this and that. We won't get you married. Like, and then Saif says, no, sub normal che or whatever, right?
Right.
But again, I mean, it's very interesting to have these conversations on screen, right? Are they ideal? Hell no.
Hell no.
But would I take it in 2003-4 over no conversations? Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah,
because they opened the doors.
Right. Yeah. Then of course, Ek Ladki Ko Dekha To Aisa Laga with Sonam Kapoor. Again, props to her for taking on like a full-on...
Ghazal for writing such a good script. Again, which goes to show how important it is when queer people, when we tell our own stories.
I'm going to come to this.
Yeah. And the mother and Shelley Chopra, whose son is gay, who made the film as a form of allyship.
Right.
So it's an ally making a film. So it makes such a big difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. Then Shubh Mangal, Zyada Savdhan, Chandigarh Ki Aashiki, and of course Badhai Do. I loved Rajkumar Rao in Badhai Do. I thought, he surprised me.
Yeah. Me too. And I'd seen it after White Tiger, which I found him terrible.
Right.
So I was like, thank you. All's well with the world. Rajkumar is acting well again.
It's back. Then, thank God, we have the streaming OTT platforms that come in. We have Netflix, Amazon, Disney Hotstar. They, of course, are less prone to censorship. They're also niche-based platforms. So, writers and filmmakers have gotten really emboldened to handle queer subjects. And I'm just going to reel off a few. Again, amazing friend Zoya Akhtar's Touching Sheila Ki Jawani. There was Neeraj Ghewan's Geeli Pucci, which was really good. The anthologies were lovely. Then there was Majama with Madhuri Dixit, though I didn't see that.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah, very interesting. I liked it.
Yeah?
I mean, also knowing Madhuri, I'd interviewed Madhuri some years ago on the women in the Tina Brown's Women in the World conference.
Right.
And I was in Q&A with Madhuri. And at that time, I mean, she had just done De Dishkiya. I remember in the interview, Madhuri was not comfortable talking about playing a queer character.
Oh, really?
And how much she has grown over the years, I think, as a person, as an actor, and B, how much times have changed.
Yes.
So it's not just her in Majama. It's her in Majama playing a lesbian character who, in the course of the film, owns her queerness. It's her in a Fame Game. Playing the mother to a queer son.
Right.
And doing what an ideal parent should do, which is listen, to love, to acknowledge, to support, right? I mean, what growth.
Yeah.
And this is why, I mean, it's not just these queer characters what I like. I like the allies.
Yeah.
I like the side notes. In an Arya with Sushmita Sen, suddenly you have a parallel track of a Muslim cop planning marriage with his male Hindu husband.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
I mean, you have all these side notes. You have interreligious gay love stories happening as sidebars to crime thrillers.
Excellent.
That excites me.
Yeah.
I love stories now where queerness is not the central character.
Correct.
Where they're dealing with other issues, but they just happen to be queer.
Yeah.
Because that normalizes it.
That's true.
And we're seeing so much of that
Did you see
on OTT.
Cobalt Blue?
I saw Cobalt. I mean, I love the book.
I love the book.
I love the film. But again, it's very hard for me with books that I love. Although Sachin Kundalkar, the director, is also the author. But I had imagined like a film which was, different. And I guess as much as I love Pratik and everyone else, but I don't remember the main character. I thought like the film. I wish they'd cast someone stronger in the main character, because I thought, I didn't think the representation of, in that sense, did justice of at least.
I mean,
the main
it's a great
character.
book, great story.
Yeah, but the film, I mean, was beautifully shot, and I thought it was like evocative.
Nicely done.
But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Then of course Zoya Rima's Made in Heaven, where you have a main lead gay character, and his gayness is just incidental to the plot, which is, I thought, amazing.
Yeah, all of it. That whole series is like incredible.
Yeah, Made in Heaven is really.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Four
and
More
then you
Shots.
have Four More Shots.
Season 2
please.
is like a lesbian love story.
Yeah.
I mean, fully again.
Yeah.
I mean, just so amazing. Again, like folks like Lisa, right? I mean, who are getting, in a sense, I mean, what's interesting is these web series are giving actors, new leases
Lots
of life
opportunities
by playing queer characters and things like that. Right?
Bringing
So
them
Lisa's
back in some way.
back in Bollywood in such an interesting way, and Lisa's doing so many other things.
Yes.
But how incredible to come to own a character, to
Yeah. Though she had also done a queer film, a Canadian film, I think, where she played
correct.
a queer. I forget the name.
Yeah.
Then there's All About Section 377. There's Romil and Jugal.
Yeah.
There's Gandhi, Bath, Season 3.
Yeah.
The Married Woman, Sacred Games, Thinkistan, Fame Game, and recently Class
So
by,
much,
again, friend Oshim Ahluwalia. What did you
Yeah.
think of Class? Did you see?
I saw Class. I saw it fully.
I like the queer story track.
I like the queer
that
story.
track.
I'm not, again, maybe this is just me at this moment in life. I'm not a fan of queer narratives which are sad or tragic. I'm done with that.
I'm a bit
so
fed
done.
up of Dukhi gaze.
Yeah, so I'm done. So I don't want people to not meet. I don't want people to. I like Heartstopper. Give me Heartstopper any day.
Yeah.
I mean, give me happy endings because
And we've had
we
that.
deserve
Yes,
them.
I know you like happy endings.
But so I'm not a fan of. I mean, I like queer representation, but I want
positive stories.
No Rona Dhona.
Yeah. I remember being on the jury for Kashish for years, which is the
Yeah.
LGBT festival. And for years, I used to be like, can we stop having this last shot where the queer has jumped off the roof or
I'm
is
done.
lying in the pool of blood or the mother is banging her
Or
head
marry
whatever.
someone else and you're so dukkhi.
I'm just like,
I mean,
okay,
please,
now that time has moved on,
yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
We are not all struggling and dark and hard. And people actually, because I'm also doing work in a non-fiction space on OTT, people come to me and they say queer, and I'm like, great. Then they're like, but this is not sad. This is not struggle.
Correct. Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, it is implicit in what it is. You don't have to highlight the struggle and the character crying. Like, the fact that they've negotiated that and gone beyond is something that needs to be put out there, right?
Yeah. No, I get the same in the corporate talks I do.
Oh, yeah?
So tell me about how you overcame all your difficulties. And I'm like, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I lived a fabulous, happy life with accepting parents and workplaces that loved me. And don't you want to know that journey?
Yeah.
I mean, do I start every journey with a straight person by saying, tell me about how it was being straight? No. I say, tell me about you. What do you do? I mean, don't we deserve the same as queer people? Don't we deserve all our magnificent and beautiful and flawed facets of our life to be examined?
Actually, you're right, because even when I did a screening of my first film, Happy Hookers, I remember a very respected journalist standing up and saying,
must have been so hard. Whatever. Sorry.
I'm not saying. I stood up and said, how can you show them as happy? They are male sex workers. I'm like, exactly, that's the point, that male sex workers have it very differently from female sex workers. They choose it, it's transitory, they make money, they leave it, there's no stigma, and that's what the film is about. But they were like, no, but you should show dukh and torture and, whatever. So I also did The Big Day, which was a Netflix series on weddings. And we managed to get a queer wedding there. So
I liked very much. Loved very much. Saw it, loved it.
Thank you.
Very
Tyrone
happy.
and Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay, very important debate, and something that I think I come up against, and I'm sure you do, is this question of having queer writers and directors for queer projects.
Yeah.
What do you feel? So this is called the queer gaze. How important do you feel having queer writers and directors? Predominantly, I'm talking about, of course, all films across the board now have lots of queer people working on crews in every department, not just the stereotypical fashion and hair, but across the board.
Yeah.
But do you feel like the authenticity goes up a notch when it's a queer person telling a queer story?
Of course. I think we've always had, it would be silly to imagine, given that 6 to 10% of any population is queer.
Which means we are around 135 million.
Yeah. And we've always, and given how much creative queer talent gravitates towards the creative industries.
Yes.
We've always had queer actors.
Right.
We've always had
Really?
queer directors.
Queer actors? 1 minute, let's
We've
stop
always
here.
had, but they've been closeted. No, I'm just saying that over the years, we've always had. It's impossible not to have had.
Correct.
I think the conversation now is about out queer talent.
Right.
I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Because
I
we've
was just
always
being
had-
gossipy
yeah,
and saying
yeah,
who are
yeah.
the queer actors.
No, that's
you know.
that you do another show.
Another
That's
episode.
another episode.
Ooh. Because everyone speculates about every actor.
You can call Corey for that or something.
But it's all speculation. Huh? This Kejo, Shah Rukh and all, it's all speculation.
Yeah, it's all speculation, but I'm just saying, so I think the conversation now is out and proud queer talent.
Yes. And not just actors, but also directors,
Technicians.
writers, directors.
Everyone. I mean, grips. I mean, everyone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's that. And that is happening more and more. I see, you go to a film school today, you will see many people on the technical side as well,
Of course.
being very
There's
comfortable,
no
out and proud about their
stereotyping anymore.
identity.
Yeah.
And that enhances the nature of the crew.
Right.
So when you have a team which is so, then
I know queer women DPs, and
Correct.
queer and DP and woman
Yeah.
were three things
Yeah.
that never went in
Yeah.
a sentence together.
yeah, so
earlier.
all of that is happening, and the conversation is being enriched on a daily basis. So it's absolutely vital and necessary. And I'll give you an example, right? So I did a project recently where with a major filmmaker, for a Netflix film, in which incidentally I have a very tiny walk-on part as well, and it's a director who I love,
Right.
who happens to be straight, whose work I admire, who's
Right.
writing a queer
story. Right.
and the conflict between the lesbian character and her lover, the way that he imagined, because he's straight, his writer is straight,
Right.
was very different from the conflict that I was like, their conflict, they see queer people only through the lens of their queerness.
Right.
And so, they were
Right,
breaking up
there's
because of something else. And so the solution was sexual. And to me, I was like, there's so much more. They don't need to fight because of their queerness. They can fight because one of them says, I love you more, and the other person doesn't. They can fight because one of them wants to adopt and the other person says, they don't.
Yeah, the
The
possibilities
sexuality
are
can be
endless.
incidental. So they were not able to see that because they did not have a queer gaze. So I'm saying when we have queer people telling our own stories, they will be more authentic, they will be more rich, they will be more, beautiful. And when we have
Right.
queer actors portraying our characters, we'll be able to do it in such a way.
Right.
So I'm waiting for that. And I'm seeing more and more of that happening. And that is honestly now the responsibility of people like us
Yes.
to create those infrastructures for
Right.
them, whether in training, whether in mentorship, whether in pushing,
Yeah.
whether in sometimes stepping back and giving that
A younger person.
that person saying, you do this,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
and so on.
So Oneer, who has persevered to bring queer issues to the mainstream,
Yeah.
says, and I quote Oneer, most of the stories told now are from a perspective of a heteronormative society. And Oneer believes that while portraying these stories, the character must be played by a person identifying as the same gender, especially in places where empowerment is not equal for different genders. So again, he says, earlier most male actors used to play transgender characters on the silver screen. It makes more sense for transgender people to play a transgender character because it's a different gender.
Yeah.
However, he asserts, before anyone starts screaming, that this debate, people confuse between gender and sexuality. It's not
Yeah.
that. I don't think that actors identifying as gay or lesbian off-screen should be subjugated to roles of the sexual minority, which nobody wants. So he does clarify it.
Yeah.
But I have to say it is a little polarizing. I've seen queer directors saying that only we should do queer stories. And I don't know, because I don't want to only do queer work. Do you want to only be in the queer equity space?
No.
Right.
But it's a space we know.
Yeah.
I think the larger way to look at it, and this is the same in the DEI space in which I work, right?
Right.
Is 6 to 10% of the population is
Is
LGBTQ. Are 6 to 10% of the stories being told LGBTQ? Are 6 to 10% of the directors LGBTQ? Are 6 to 10% of the registered actors LGBTQ? And
Then
so
why
on.
not?
So
Yeah.
I think we need to create a space in which we look like the world outside. And until that happens, there has to be positive discrimination of a certain kind.
Right.
So until we create a world in which 10% of directors are queer and happy about it and talking about it, and it's natural and it's non-incidental,
Right.
I think we have to insist that queer directors should be telling their queer, try and find a queer actor first for the script.
Right.
Try and find, because we are underrepresented.
Absolutely.
So I think in an ideal world, everyone should do everything.
Yeah.
But it's not an
It
ideal
doesn't
world,
happen, yeah.
right? I mean, it's the same as saying so many years ago, well, white people can do blackface and play
Yes,
black
exactly.
characters. So
Lawrence-
why do
Sir
you
Laurence
need
Olivier
why do you
doing
need black
blackface.
characters, black people playing black people on screen? But I mean, thankfully, that is not happening right now, and there are more and more black people on screen, behind the cameras, writing, and so on, and has enriched the experience.
It's not even a conversation
It's enriched the cinematic experience. Likewise, this year you saw at the Oscars, there was an Asian celebration, and it enriches everyone's experience, including that of white people. Just as having more queer talent behind and in front of the camera will create a better viewing experience for straight audiences also.
Right, true.
Because they will get
authentic,
more authentic,
real,
whatever.
yeah.
So my take on it is, I certainly think that we have to all strive very hard, queer as well as straight allies, because if 6 to 10% of the industry is queer, 90% of the industry is still straight allies.
Right.
And we need our straight allies to understand.
Of course.
Because they are the ones who control, money. They are the ones who have power. They are the ones who make decisions. If you're a producer, and you have a theme and a subject which is LGBTQ, invest in casting your net wider and getting actors that may be incredible. Like Patal Lok, for example.
Right. Which had a transgender
trans person
actor
playing a trans person, and it was incredible.
It was great, yeah.
So invest in your director, invest in doing workshops. And sometimes you have to build this infrastructure. If you're a big movie studio like Dharma, do a fellowship program. I'm saying in Hollywood, people are doing all of this, right? When people are not finding talent, they're saying, we are creating a workshop, young writers come apply, and we will skill you to do this.
Yes.
So I think once we do that, we will reach a place where, and of course, they can call you and me to conduct these workshops.
Yes,
because we have so
us.
much to share, we have so much to give.
Yeah.
And I must say, this is not just for LGBTQ people. I hope everyone listening to this podcast realizes it's the same for people with disabilities. It's the same if you're Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi.
Yes.
It's the same if you
For
come
any
from
of
a
the
region of
marginalized,
India which is non-mainstream,
the Northeast.
all of India is not, UP and Punjab. But so many of our stories are set because so much of Bollywood is,
Punjab,
Punjabi refugees who come to Bombay, Sindhis become financiers, Punjabis become the creative people, and so on. But our cinema, our media serves the whole country.
Yeah.
So why don't we have more representation from the Northeast, for example, right? So, I would say
which is happening again slowly.
Which is
but
happening.
surely.
I would say this, what I'm saying in terms of doing it with intent is something that people who are in position of power need to do because it is in their advantage to do so. And people are realizing that more and more, and people are doing it more and more, which is why I think we are entering a golden age of representation.
Great. On this positive note, I have to say we are done.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. As I knew, you'd be extremely eloquent, extremely fun, and lots of chatty.
Where's my hamper?
Where's it?
Where's my
I was going to say,
Karan?
you have to look at the producers.
It's not that kind of show.
It's not that kind of show. And also, I've been telling every guest that thanks for coming without a hamper.
I was
Thanks for
expecting a
coming.
big rainbow hamper.
No, I'll come over and make you
What
happy.
is this, Pushpa? I'm going to cry now.
But you've got something rainbow on the table.
I have a gift for you.
Yay,
see?
I love
Which
gifts.
I'm gonna open my
SFX.
Yeah. I'm gonna
What is it? Tell me in the meantime.
You have
please show it to the camera also.
Oh my
since
god.
There's one.
You have a paperback, a fresh paperback
Yay.
version. I know you like hard versus soft, but I got you soft. It's Queeristan's paperback edition.
Amazing. And I have to confess I haven't read it. So
I know. If
thank
you'd read
you
it
so much.
If you'd read it before this podcast, you'd have asked deeper questions. But having said that, just kidding.
While you're signing and giving me this lovely gift, thank you so much, Parmesh, for coming in. Please keep doing the amazing work that you do. Please keep mentoring also the young queers because I think that's really important.
And thank you. And it's been a blast going on this incredible journey with you.
Yay.
And yeah, I'll just, really love everything you're doing in the podcast, with your films, with everything else. Keep it up. I think like us now, we're the mommies and daddies of the young ones now.
Of the movement
so
now.
let's be good queer parents and
pushing the
create
pink agenda.
Better gabies.
And look at your pink shoes, perfectly pushing the pink agenda.
Yeah. Lots of love, everyone. Mwah, mwah.
Thank you.
You were listening to The Queer Podcast, hosted by Ashish Soni. Produced by Audiomatic. Producers for Audiomatic, Akanksha Kadam and Avdoot Khanolkar. Assistant producer, Nitesh Zuvare. Original title track by Shreejit Vijayan. Sound design, mix and master by Team Audiomatic. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guest and do not reflect the policy or position of any organization, entity, or platform. This podcast is not intended to harm, defame, or offend any individual, group, or organization, and any references made to persons, living or deceased, are purely coincidental and not intended to be taken as factual statements. Listener discretion is advised.